This is Good Morning San Diego.
Still to come on Good Morning San Diego, the Boston Marathon suspect, of course, has now been charged with conspiracy to use weapons of mass destruction.
Coming up, we're going to talk to a former prosecutor and find out what could be next. A suspect in the Boston bombings has recently been charged with conspiring to use weapons of mass destruction. Former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney Anna Yum is joining us more to talk about this issue and what could be next. Good morning to you, Anna.
Good morning, Alexis.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Okay, so there is a bit of confusion surrounding the suspect that's in the hospital right now. Can you tell us what's happening for him and what's going to be next?
Absolutely. So Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, he's the younger brother. He's suspect number 2. And he's in the hospital right now because he suffered a bunch of injuries. Specifically, he had a bullet wound to his neck, injuries on his arms, perhaps his legs. And what happened yesterday was that the magistrate judge in federal court went to the hospital along with the AUSA, which is the federal prosecutor, and the federal defender. And yesterday what happened was Mr. Tsarnaev faced what's called the initial appearance in federal court. What happens at the initial appearance is that he understands the nature of the charges against him. He's advised of his right to a lawyer. He's advised of his right to remain silent, among other constitutional rights. And at that point in time, the magistrate judge says, all right, looks like you're not going anywhere with respect to bail, and we'll come back for a probable cause hearing May 30th, I believe is the date.
Okay, and the judge obviously went to him because they didn't want to wait until he was well enough to go to court?
Correct. And usually what happens is when someone is detained or arrested, they have a certain amount of time before they have to be seen by a magistrate judge according to the law, and usually it's 48 hours.
And there were some difficulties, as you mentioned. I mean, his throat was cut. He couldn't speak. So how were they able to communicate?
Right, that's an excellent question. My understanding is that, my understanding is that he was using, he was nodding his head, and he was also writing things down. So what happened was when the judge would ask him certain questions, he would nod, or he would write something down on a piece of paper.
So he knows what's going on. I mean,
right.
He is fully aware that the judge is there, that he is going to be prosecuted.
That's correct. So the judge had indicated, the magistrate judge made sure he understood and said, are you lucid? Can you understand? Can you understand and comprehend the nature of the proceedings?
Okay.
And what was really interesting, Alexis, about this, we heard about Miranda. We heard about this entire issue around Miranda, and I think this is very important to clarify. When I counsel clients, one of the most frequent questions that I get are, I was arrested and I was never Mirandized. Does that mean that my whole case gets thrown out? And that's not the case. What happens with Miranda is that basically, if a person gives a confession or some kind of statements to law enforcement before the Miranda rights are read, then the statement gets suppressed. It doesn't mean that all the other evidence gets thrown out the window.
Okay, and they're more concerned about getting this guy prosecuted than what he could possibly say.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's why what happened was the public safety exception was the reason as to why they were able to question him before giving his Miranda rights, because they were saying that there was an imminent or an immediate threat to public safety, and they needed to see if there were other explosives, perhaps.
A lot of people are wondering why he won't be tried as an enemy combatant. Why won't he, and what does that mean?
Well, an enemy combatant typically means that the typical situation is if there's a foreign national who's on enemy battleground who's trying to commit terrorist acts, or if he was from a different country and another country sent him here to U.S. soil with the efforts of trying to commit a terrorist act. And so I think the biggest reason as to why he wasn't declared an enemy combatant was twofold. I don't think there was enough information to determine if there were other entities putting him up to this terrorist act. And also he's a U.S. citizen. He got naturalized in September 11, 2012. So I think those are the concerns that made the administration determine he's not going to be an enemy combatant. He's going to be tried here in the civilian courts, specifically in federal.
And before you go, the federal charges are conspiring to use a weapon of mass destruction, right?
Correct.
Beyond that, could there be more?
Yes, there's 2 charges. So it's the use of the weapon of mass destruction, and then of course the basically the destroying of property resulting in death after using a weapon of mass destruction. And these are just preliminary charges. He could potentially face additional charges, and also he might face state charges because of that MIT officer that was killed.
Okay, and we won't know anything more until the end of May, or could we learn more prior to that?
It's possible that we could learn prior to that, especially if the AUSA or the government releases some more additional information. I think what was really telling about that complaint that we saw was that there was an affidavit attached to it from an FBI agent, and we were able to learn so much more about what was going on. Apparently there was video surveillance of the 2 brothers acting suspiciously. Once the bomb went off, they were just walking around. Everyone else was panicked, and they were just walking around. Apparently, they also told the victim of the carjacking, you know the Boston Marathon bombings? We did it.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're so thankful for that surveillance video.
Absolutely.
Hannah, thank you so much for coming in and breaking this down for us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. See you soon.